Hi, I'm Christopher MacBride. I wrote and directed a film called The Conspiracy, and you're watching the Canadian Film Review.
I want to hear what your perspective of the film is about because you did you write and direct it?
I did. Yes, I wrote and directed it. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, basically, the conspiracy is about these two documentary filmmakers that are making a documentary about conspiracy theories, and they are interviewing a bunch of conspiracy theorists and getting to know them, and never completely believing what these guys believe in, but what happens is eventually one of the conspiracy theorists vanishes, and then that starts getting them curious, and they start wondering, did this guy vanish because he was crazy? Did he get picked up by the police? Or was he maybe onto something? And then they start getting sort of sucked into the conspiracy theory beliefs that this guy had, and it creates ripples in the relationship, and one guy starts thinking that this guy was really onto something, and then the other documentary filmmaker is more skeptical and still thinks that conspiracy theories aren't true, and they start getting sucked into this whole real conspiracy that they find out has sort of global implications and is tied to a lot of different sort of hot button conspiracy theory issues. So that's sort of the overall plot of the film.
So now my question to you is: Are you very conspiracy theory minded, or are you the skeptic?
I'm a little bit of both. I was never a conspiracy theorist sort of by nature, but I had a bunch of friends that were really into conspiracy theories, and they just got me curious about that world, and I started researching that world, and I started just sort of getting sucked into it and intrigued by it, and not just intrigued by the conspiracy theories themselves, but I was intrigued by the people and the sort of community of people all over the world that believe this stuff like a religion. And so I've never completely become a conspiracy theory person, so to speak, but at the same time, I don't judge them either. It was always my intention with the movie to sort of blur the lines on how much of it I had made up and how much was based on fact and how much was based on actual conspiracy theories. So I intertwined a lot of the plot elements in the film with actual conspiracy theories. So the JFK, 9/11, lots to do with secret organizations that are real secret organizations out there, and even some of the people in the film are not actors; they're actual who they appear to be in the film. So so I tried to purposely do that because not as a gimmick, but because I think that's the way conspiracy theories are. And when you're looking into a conspiracy theory, you just can't tell how much is fact and how much is made up. And so I wanted the film to sort of have the same feel where, you're recognizing some things in the film as real, but you're just not sure. So you want to, jump on Wikipedia right after the movie to figure out, how much of this is real and how many of these organizations are real.
Yeah. And I love that idea. I also love the idea of blurring the lines within knowing what is real and what isn't real. And we've got this interesting vein of like films like The Imposter and Catfish and Stories We Tell. And we go and see blockbuster movies like superhero movies. And they are all lies, essentially. Like we're being lied to. There's no flying men. There's no, and yet your movie will attract attention for the questions that it will pose, like what is real in it and what isn't real in it, whereas we just take it verbatim that we know we're seeing 100% faults in a superhero movie, and yet we're indulging ourselves in that believability.
No, absolutely, and it's so interesting the way people can accept something as long as they feel they know 100% what it is. Like, as long as they know it's a lie, okay, fine, no problem. Like, they're willing to accept the lie. But as soon as it becomes unclear, I think they can get angry and, maybe lash out at it or criticize it because they don't know, how do I take this? I think people want to be told how to perceive what they're about to perceive before they do. I think it's you can almost draw a parallel to movies, big action movies that have tons of explosions and people dying, but as long as it's cartoony, it's fine to watch 100 people die in a film. But a movie that has one really violent, realistic death or murder, sometimes people lash out at that and like, why do we need to see this in a film? It's so brutal. But it's because it's true, because it's too real, and they would rather just see cartoony nonsense, even though that's 100 times more ridiculous to have violence reduced to that sort of thing.
Yeah, very true. Tell me about creating it in Canada. Tell me about some of the pitfalls or some of the pros about making this film here, and also making it for a international audience, not just it wasn't a Canadian story in a Canadian city, but it had a very much international appeal.
Yeah, it was a difficult process. Making any movie is difficult, but it was, I think, relatively easy by Canadian standards. It was about a year of development from the time we finished the script to the time we finished, so that's not much time at all. Everyone really responded to the script. And then we shot about 5 weeks. Sometimes we had permits, sometimes we didn't. Some of the scenes in the film where Terrence, our conspiracy theorist, is going out into public with a megaphone and yelling, we did not have a permit for that. We were literally just walking out into the middle of Young and Bloor with this guy with a megaphone, and he was screaming at actual people on the street. So a lot of the reactions you see in the film are actual people looking at this guy. And in terms of making it for an international audience, I mean, I always thought, Canadian film doesn't have to be about, what we think of as sort of typical Canadian issues. It's not like every American film is about the War of Independence or hamburgers or, baseball. Like I think sometimes, films might fall into a trap of thinking they have to sort of separate themselves from American films by identifying themselves as Canadian specifically, and that's a way to sort of get space and be like, look, we're a Canadian film. But in order to do that, they might latch on to things that maybe are stereotypes about Canada as opposed to what it's actually like to be here. That's just my opinion of some Canadian films, and I just wanted to make a film, not a Canadian film, not an American film, just a film about an issue. But it takes place in Toronto, and it's we don't hide the fact that it's Toronto, but it's just a movie. It's a movie, I think, for everyone, hopefully.
Now, I hear you have a couple of interesting projects coming up, or at least one that's quite exciting. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's funny. Even though the film hasn't opened in Canada yet, it opens on July 19th. In Los Angeles, it's been passed around everywhere, so lots of people have seen it there, and so that sort of opened up some opportunities for me. And I'm making a film right now with 20th Century Fox that is sort of Philip K. Dick-esque thriller, and so that's really exciting, and I'm just at the script stage on that. I also have a film that I'm going to shoot in Canada either later this year in the fall or early next year. It's called Grown Up Suzanne, and it's sort of a revenge tale set in a small Ontario town, and it's I think the only thing I can say about it is it's the most dark and twisted thing I've ever written, and so it's no surprise that people in Canada have taken to the script. So I think now that I'm doing more work in LA, I've figured out like all my sort of dark twisted stuff I'm going to keep doing up here in Canada, and then the more mainstream stuff I'll do down there. But it's great that we have excuse me, that opportunity to do that in Canada, because they, scripts that in LA they would, just be like, what? Why are you not in a mental institution? Up here, they're like, why is this not a movie yet? Yeah. This is great. So,
but I do love that aspect of it, is that we can create things up here that are very original, and then that it's like it's almost I don't know, it seems like in reverse in some way. You couldn't get it made down in the States, and yet they'll watch it and they'll go, "Oh my God, that's amazing. We need you to direct our next mainstream project that's not as original and creative." But it's a funny little twist, that, eh?
Oh, you're so right. That's exactly it. Yeah, they like the people in down south love the Conspiracy and think it's great, and they're like, and here's a romantic comedy for you to do. You know? So yeah, no, you're totally right. It's they and I don't want to paint everyone with the same brush, but
Yeah.
you know, a lot of production companies down there, they can recognize and really enjoy more challenging, darker material, but don't necessarily make it themselves. So yeah, it's an interesting sort of paradox you find yourself in when you start dipping your toe in the waters down there, for sure.
But as filmmakers, this must be really a prime time for you, because we don't really make money up in Canada, so you have an opportunity to go down and make money, but then you also have an opportunity to fulfill your creative wishes and intents. So it must be a very nice time for you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's you know, it's great. It's great. Like it's great that people you know, basically like the Conspiracy so much that those opportunities have opened up for me. So yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's, you know, I'll always, you know, no matter what happens with me, keep making films in Canada for sure. Just because there's just, you know, I know so many amazing creative different filmmakers, actors, producers. You know, all the people at Telefilm I've worked with have been great. So you know, there's, you know, there's a good thing going up here, and I think you know, it just maybe takes a few more filmmakers in Canada to really have awesome films to sort of set the Canadian film scene on fire. You know, and that's happened in other countries. You know, I always say. What Canada really needs is their own train spotting. You know, Canada needs the train spotting of Canada, like a movie that is quintessentially Canadian and cool, but also universal, and you know, has an edge. And so yeah, you know, and I think you look at what train spotting did for UK cinema in the second half of the '90s. You wouldn't have Guy Ritchie and all of these different sort of things that exploded after Trainspotting, and I think that's what we need in Canada. We need that one filmmaker to make that one Trainspotting film that will make Canadian film cool and edgy.
And I think if it's not already out there, I think we're really close to that. You know, I feel that's there.
Oh, I agree. There's so many good filmmakers right now in Canada, and so many. Just like super talented. There's so many films I see by Canadian filmmakers that maybe not a lot of people have heard of, but I just think like, yeah, that person could make, you know, that one film that changes everything. And so I agree. I think we're really close.
Yeah. Well, keep us in the loop with all of your future projects. We do want the scoop early on. We want any information, you know, leading up to a film, because we really like the idea that they do this funny thing in the States where they promote a film like right from the beginning all the way through. We think that's kind of important. We don't want to scare audiences with it just turning up on the weekend and they don't know anything about it in Canada. So keep us in the loop with your future ones. This one comes out July 19th, starting in Toronto and then going across the country, right?
Yeah, then heading down to the States in August. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.